What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Mike Versbro, and for today's video I'm going to continue where I left off from my previous video and show you guys how to do a Milky Way reflection in stagnant or still water using a tracked Milky Way sky. Now this shot right here is about 20 photos stacked together using Starry Landscape Stacker, just to show you guys a representation of what it would look like at nighttime. And we're going to try and recreate this photo using my twilight image right here and my tracked Milky Way sky. So first things first, just like we did in the last video, we want to take the foreground and really mute down the colors and make it look as flat as possible, similar to this image. So let's go to work on that. So I'm going to reduce my highlights. We could also warm up the image a little bit. Bring down the shadows a hair. Drop my whites. And lower the blacks. I'm going to reduce the vibrance and the saturation to -10. And then individually I'm going to reduce the orange and yellow as well some more. And then go down to your blue slider and take out some blue. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to bring the whites down a little bit more. And then everything else we can leave alone. Now jumping over to the Milky Way. Now I have two of them. I made a copy. One of them I'm going to darken up, and I'll show you guys when we get to Photoshop the reason why I'm doing this. So I'm going to increase the contrast and my blacks. And bring down the whites. Actually, you know what? Yeah, we could bring down the whites a little bit. And I'm going to increase the highlights though. And I'm going to create a mask. Do a radial gradient mask right here in the middle. And just tone down the Milky Way core. So let's bring the highlights down some more. Stretch that out. Hit done. And now I just wanted to do a noise reduction. I could go really high with this. It's okay. We're going to soften up these stars a little bit. Alright, that looks good. So let's bring in our three photos to Photoshop. So we're going to select them and go to Photo, Edit in, Open as layers in Photoshop. Alright, so here we are in Photoshop, and I brought in my layers. I even included this one as well to use as a reference. So the first thing I want to do is flip my sky image. Go to Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. And I'm making sure that I have both of my skies selected and I'm moving them at the same time. That way they stay in alignment. And we'll put it like right around here. I can lower the opacity just to check. That should be good. And I'm going to turn off those layers for now and jump to my foreground layer. Let's go to Edit, Sky Replacement. Now if you don't have your sky already imported, you're going to have to do that by clicking this drop down box right here. Just give it a second to load up. And then go to the plus icon. And then you're going to have to search for your photo and import it to your sky replacement. Mine's already in there. And let's just make some quick edits. So I just want to lower this below the horizon. Right there is good. We want to fade the edge more to the right in this particular image, because whenever you're shooting over the ocean, there's always a lot of dew and mist along the horizon line. So I don't want a nice clean bright horizon right here. I kind of want to darken that up. And we could zoom in to fine tune that a little bit more. See how some stars are showing through into the horizon. So grab my brush, make sure it's on negative, and we could paint those away. I'm going to do this really quickly, but obviously take your time to make it as perfect as possible. Okay, that's pretty good. As far as the brightness, I'm going to leave it as is, and the temperature is okay as well. Jumping down to the foreground adjustments, we could darken this up. You don't want to go too bright. This looks more unnatural. We want to darken this up, so we're going to move the slider to the right. We'll keep it at 90. As far as the edge lighting, again, I don't want it too bright near the horizon. I want to darken this up for this particular image to make it more natural. And to the left, I think cools it down a little bit, and to the right should warm it up a hair. It's really a minimal adjustment going on right there, so I'll just keep it around 80 and hit OK. Alright, so there's our folder with our sky replacement. And next we want to add our stars. So let's turn on the first layer. And you could either use multiply, which is going to be really dark, but you could always lower the opacity. You could also play around with a couple other, sometimes I play around with screen as well, but we're going to stick with overlay for this particular image. And it's quite dark, so I'm going to lower the opacity to about 80% and create a layer mask right here with this button. Now I'm going to grab my bucket tool, switch it to black, and we're going to fill this. That's going to hide everything. Now switch back to white and grab your paintbrush, and now we're just going to start painting back the water area only. Again, you're going to zoom in here and really take your time to go along this edge, but I'm going to do it very quickly for this tutorial. So if I hit the rocks a little bit, it's not a big deal. I could always erase it, but in your case, kind of zoom in and really make that more perfect than I'm doing right now. Alright, so there is our reflection. Now if we look at our reference photo, you can see there's a lot more stars here in the foreground that are very bright. That's why I brought in that additional photo, and let's turn that layer on. Now for that layer, we're going to switch it over to lighten, and this is going to allow all the brighter areas to shine through, so pretty much all the stars, although it's going to allow some of the core to shine through as well, so I'm going to have to hide some of that. So what we want to do is again create a layer mask and fill it with black. That's going to hide that layer. Switch to paintbrush, and I want to use a very low opacity. Let's try like about 20%. Start painting back these stars. I'm going to go a little bit lower. Switch that to 10%. And you could go over the core a little bit, but try not to go over too much unless you want to stand out a lot more. I want it to kind of keep it similar to this image right here. You could see the core reflecting, but it's not extremely vibrant. So painting in these stars. Again, take your time and play around with the opacity, really get a nice blend going. Now let's compare this to our other image. Now you see how our composite has a lot of stars compared to the reference photo. There is a way to remove some of those. You can either paint them out. There's also another technique we could use, so just make sure you have your layer selected and not the actual layer mask. So I'm going to click right here and go to Filter, Noise, Dust and Scratches. Now your pixel radius and your threshold is going to vary depending on the size of the photo. Since I scaled these photos down, I have to use a very low pixel of 1, because if I go any higher than that, it's going to remove all the stars. So I'm going to leave it on 1, and then your threshold, obviously you could play around with this, and this is going to bring back more stars, or you can remove them. So we'll just keep mine around like 20 and hit OK. So actually, before I do that, so we have the preview on, so here's the before and then here's the after. So I reduced some of these stars. Now I might have taken out too many stars, but again, I scaled down these images, so this is grabbing a lot more stars than I normally would if I was using a larger photo. So you know what, I'll bring the threshold back up a little bit, about 40. Alright, so there we go. Now we have some more stars that are speckled all across our foreground here, very similar to our reference photo. Now these are a little bit softer and larger because I'm focused at infinity here, and as things get closer to the camera, they're not quite as sharp. So what you could do if you really want to mimic that as well, we can apply a Gaussian blur to these stars, or you could also do a slight motion blur. So you would just go into filter, blur, motion blur, and again your pixel distance is going to vary depending on the size of the photo, but you know, we could do you don't want to go too much, maybe around like 2 or 3 pixels if you want to add a little motion blur, or you could even do the Gaussian blur, filter blur right here, and you just want to do a very low radius just to soften them up a little bit. You're going to do that to both your layers. Alright, so here is my stacked image versus our composite shot. Obviously we have a little bit more light going on in the rocks. We don't have all these boat lights and light pollution going on in the distance, but that's okay. This is a much cleaner image. We have the nice tracked sky. Everything's a lot sharper from the front all the way to the back of this image versus, you know, it's a little soft up here. You can see the rocks in the foreground are soft. Some of these stars are a little soft, and then they start to sharpen up as it gets further away from the camera. But you know, that's kind of personal preference. It's a little bit mistier here in the water just because we stacked multiple photos and the tide was coming in. So this was later on at night, so the waves are crashing a little bit higher up. So that's going to be a slight difference. But all in all, I think this is a nice, clean, and very natural looking composite shot. So hopefully this helped you guys out. You could also utilize these reflection tutorials with daytime and sunrise and sunset pictures as well. I'll probably do a tutorial on that just so you guys have a general idea, but it's pretty much the same steps. Alright guys, so have a good one, take care, thanks for watching, bye bye.